Ready? Hey guys, welcome to Jack Podcast. I'm the host, Brian Aristondo. This is Renee, and this is Elias. Today we're going to be talking about budgeting.
So what is the benefits of budgeting?
Alrighty, there's a lot of benefits that come with budgeting. One of them is just knowing where your money goes. So let's say you got needs, wants, you need money set aside in case an emergency happens. Budgeting is perfect for this because if you don't know where your money is going, you won't know if you have enough money if an emergency pops up. So these are the benefits of that.
Really learn about budgeting.
Alright, some books I recommend and that I read that are really good are Automatic Millionaire, Money Honey, and Clever Girl Finance.
So what made you get into budgeting?
Alright, so what made me get into budgeting was I was working a minimum wage job and paying for rent was pretty tough. So I was spending money where I didn't need to spend it, and it led to me struggling like for food, having money left over for food, and in case an emergency happens. So I discovered, man, I have no money set aside for anything. I need to start budgeting on what my money is going, where it's going to, so I could finally have enough money in case an emergency pops up, and so I could finally save money. So that's where I got into budgeting.
If you want money saved up for emergencies, or if you're saving up for anything else, like let's say a car or a house or anything like that, even if you're working a minimum wage job, how much should you take out of your salary for emergencies?
Well, all this depends on what your needs are. So it depends on what you need to be paying. Like if you have car payments, if you're living in an apartment, if you're paying for rent, if you have, depends on how much food you're gonna need, how much you're gonna eat. So it all depends on how much money you can put aside for those things and how much you're willing to set aside. So you need to be willing to put aside some money for what you want in the future instead of what you want now. So sometimes you have to make some sacrifices.
Alright. What mistakes have you went through when you started budgeting?
Mistakes I went through was budgeting, was understanding how hard some sacrifices are gonna be. So the things you want, you're not gonna be able to have those anymore. So you gotta come into account of what you're willing to sacrifice and give away, because if you don't plan out what you can live without, then you're gonna really struggle with, budgeting without what you want. So you gotta understand what your wants are and if you're willing to give that away. Those are the mistakes I made because I couldn't go without some things. So you need to plan out what you really don't need.
Different methods that you use for budgeting.
So a really simple and good method that you can use for budgeting is called the 50-30-20 rule. And this rule is basically you put 50% of your income, put that into your needs. Your needs could be anything from housing, car payments, and food. And then you're gonna put 30% of your income into things, to your wants. So whatever, it could be clothes, it could be shoes, things like that. And then you're gonna put 20% of that income into your savings and investments.
Now that we covered the mistakes and all the decisions that you made that allowed you to have failures, what are some good choices and decisions that you made that allow you to succeed in budgeting and to make you some extra cash?
Good choices I made in budgeting that allowed me to make extra money was just figuring out how much money I'm gonna put aside for those investments and those savings. A good way I did this was just simply, I worked more, because I realized how much money I was getting and all the budgeting I did for all my needs, all my savings. I wasn't saving enough money to make a desirable income in my investments for my future, and I wanted to get more. So I just decided to work more, I put more hours in my job, and put more money into those savings and into those investments.
How many jobs were you working at the time?
At the time, I was only working one job, and it was a minimum wage job at a fast food place. You can do this, you could budget with any job, depending on how much you're making, your money will go in different places. Yeah, how much money you can put in, how much money you can put in savings, or how much money you can put in investments. But no matter how much you're working or what job you're working, you can still put something in if you budget correctly.
So you're saying that
How much did you start off?
Yeah, how much did you start off?
How much did I start?
Like how much money did you start off putting to the side?
So I started really small because I wasn't working too many hours. I only was putting aside about maybe $200 out of my paycheck every 2 weeks. So I'd put in $200 in my savings about every week.
What would you do with the money?
With that money, I'd just put it in savings and save it there and rack up some cash. The 50-30-20 rule, I like this method because it's very simple and easy to follow. So basically just using 50% of your whole income and putting into your needs. And then this leaves you with enough wiggle room to put that into things like your wants and in your savings. So this leaves you with a decent amount of money into all the things you need, want, and things you should save up for and in your investments. It's very simple to follow. That's all I got on that, to be honest.
You use that method like throughout your whole life?
No, I did not use that method throughout my whole life because, depending on how much money you're making, you can't always follow that rule. So you might have to put some cash, more cash into your needs than into your wants or savings. So you're gonna have to wiggle it around a bit depending on your income and depending on what you need to be paying.
Did you learn how to use the 50-30-20 rule from videos or reading?
Yeah, so when I was getting into budgeting, I was basically just looking it up on Google.
So you researched?
Yeah, I researched about budgeting a bit when I was getting into it, how to do it, and then the 50-30-20 rule popped up and it was very easy to follow. So that was my. So now that I shared my experience about budgeting and my personal experience with that, I'm wondering, do you guys have any experiences of your own on budgeting?
Me personally, when I was 18, my parents stopped supporting me because I dropped out of high school, thinking it was a good idea because I invested in stocks and all this stuff. And so I thought I didn't need school, but I did. I ended up reading books and stuff. But yeah, when I was 18, I only had one job. I kept spending money on stupid stuff, like things I didn't need, so I started budgeting, and yeah, now I'm at where I am.
Nice. That's an interesting story.
So for me, when I first turned 16, I got my first job, and once I turned 16, I already knew what I wanted, like what I was saving up for. I wanted to buy a house. My goal was when I turned right around 18, stay for 2 years and just invest and save for 2 years until I turned 18 to put a down payment for a house. That was my main goal. And so when I turned 16, I started working at a movie theater, and I would normally get every 2 weeks at least maybe $800 to $1,000 every 2 weeks. And what I would do is I would also apply the 50-30-20 rule. When I was in high school, I would read a lot of books about budgeting and how to use this rule to benefit myself. So whenever I would get $1,000 every 2 weeks, I would put $500 on my needs. It would be for either my payments for my car or insurance, because I was a minor, I needed to pay more insurance, and for gas, and for my AP classes. And whenever I would put 300, I would put 300 for my wants. It would either be my gym supplies or supplements or Jordans or shoes, suits, and 20% I would put in my savings account. I'd put $200, and that really helped me when I turned 18 to put a down payment for a house and not have my first house. And I was able to, from that money, rent it out and get some cash flow, and I was able to save up and buy more properties, and that's what led me to this day.
So now throughout that time, did you use the 50-30-20 rule?
Yeah, of course.
Throughout your whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if all my properties that I have, whenever I have about a few hundred properties right now in California and other states, and all the cash flow that comes in every month, I would get approximately $100,000 each month, and I have my kids now and my wife, and I would $50,000 goes to us and our mortgage or our car payments or anything, or food for my children, and whatever my kid needs for school. And I'll have $30,000 for us for vacation at the end of the year, or any Christmas presents or any birthday presents for my kids.
Yeah.
And $20,000 would be for me and my wife. We talked about, we have our own savings account that we open together, and just saving up and investing.
Alrighty, so that was everything we have today for about budgeting. So
50-30-20 rule.
yeah, we talked about the 50-30-20 rule. Alrighty, so that was Jack's podcast. That was episode 1. We talked about budgeting, the benefits of budgeting, the 50-30-20 rule, and how you can use it to benefit you in your savings, and how to put money into your savings and separate it from your needs and wants.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in episode 2.
Join us in for next week, guys. We'll be going up the topics on real estate and how to start a small business. This will be episode 2. Don't forget to miss it. You guys don't want to miss this one. Okay.
Stocks, right?
So, Brian, what is your experience with the stock market, and how have you profited from this?
Right. So recently, I just purchased some stocks using Fidelity, using that investment company. The stocks that I bought were called index funds, and the reason why I bought these was because they're a lot less riskier than going out and buying stocks from an individual company, such as buying stocks from Apple or buying stocks from Tesla or some things like that. Like buying stocks from there, the prices could either rise greatly or they can drop just as low. And with an index fund, there's a lot less chance of those prices, bouncing around so much. So you were able to match the market and get a stable income.
Would you recommend people to buy from S&P 500s?
Yeah, I'd recommend so. It's a lot less riskier than, like I said, buying from a big company, and it's a lot more easier to keep track of. You just buy it and let it sit there, and it's gonna match the market because you're buying multiple shares from multiple different companies bundled together, so it's not gonna rise, as much as like a larger company individually, but it's not gonna fall as much. So it's a very safe bet.
Yeah, you're not gonna have to worry about just one company, just rely on just that one to make money off all of it goes up or down. You can have all these other companies. If one goes down, you have another one to back you up, and if that one, you have another one to back you up.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it.
I invested into one company, which was Tesla. It's a pretty big company. I researched it. I heard like it goes skyrocket up a little sometimes, and then I bought I think so it was 3 shares, and then in like 2 months, I looked at the app and it just skyrocketed up, and I just pulled out. Haven't done stocks ever since then, and yeah, that's all I know.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Jack Podcast. We're starting episode 2. Today we're going to be talking about stock market. We're just talking about real estate and how to start up a small business. This is Elias, Renee, and let's get started. All right, so now that we talked about the stock market and our experiences with that, let's move on to real estate. So I know you know a lot about real estate. Tell me about your experiences with it and how to get started with it.
Well, like I mentioned in the first episode, the reason why I worked my job and had all these side hustles was to put a down payment for a house, because that was the real estate game I wanted to get into since I was a little kid. Now, the reason why I wanted to get into the real estate game is because I understand the value of homes and properties. The power of owning properties is so valuable, especially in this country, because real estate, it's all around us. This school is an estate. Malls are estates that come to cash flow for many businesses, restaurants, movie theaters. You have to buy land. That's the main thing, because if you have land, you have that power to do whatever you want with the land. So what I started off is when I turned 18, I bought my first house, and I made an Airbnb behind it that was also coming in cash flow. I had another tenant there. My first house, I didn't buy it. I had those 2 properties, and I had to rent them out. I charged $2,500 for my house, the tenant that was living there, and I charged an extra $2,000. So I was coming in almost $5,000 each month, and I was still living with my parents, but cash flow was coming in every single month. And I made about a few like 5,000 times
60,000.
Yeah, I had made 60,000 in 1 year just by doing literally nothing. I quit my minimum wage job and I just focused on my other stuff, my other side hustles, and I was able to make 60 grand my first year. And then once I turned my 20s, I started buying more properties, and I bought land, and I built an apartments with my father, and we created about 100 apartments, and that was coming in about $50K each month. So we profited about almost 500,000 for each year. Now the game is that you don't have to buy the best properties or the most good looking. All you have to do is just buy land and build homes from the ground up, and you don't have to live in them. Just get tenants. You want to make sure that your tenants have good credit. That's the main thing. Especially in this country, boys, the credit is really good. You have to make sure your credit is good, and you have to make sure that they're nice and reliable people, because you have to make sure who they are and their personality, because not everyone wants to pay their mortgage. Some people might want to make excuses, so you have to make sure that people are actually good and respectable people. And you also have to make sure what their stage is in life, because some things they might have a situation where, because cancer can happen, you know, people get sick or a car crash down for your tenants and they might not be able to pay you. So I have to make sure where they are, and so you can rely on them always have to pay you on time.
Right. Now, how long would it usually take for you to get a tenant into one of your homes?
You don't have to worry about that. Literally, you could just have a property on sale. Literally have maybe a sign that has in front of your land. First, have the little home there and just have a for sale sign, or just put them online. And you'd be surprised, because my first 2 hours after I put my first house,
Yeah.
I got about like 30 people coming in, calling me about 30 people texting me.
Wow, in the first 2 hours?
Yeah. Because a lot of people.
You said 50,000 a month. How much were you charging? Like, were you charging monthly, weekly,
Monthly.
monthly?
And how much would you charge monthly?
The houses,
Yeah, for the house.
like 2,000, 2,500.
No,
What?
no. You said you made 50,000 a month.
That's from apartments, dude. I said about apartments
Yeah.
that I made.
Yeah. But you
I
just
had
said
100. I had 100 apartments. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
that makes no sense.
100 apartments.
So you can say
I made 200,000.
no.
So-
No. Okay.
Okay.
But say like, but now I charge at least
Due to inflation.
Due to inflation, I now charge 2,000, and since the 100 apartments, I made about 2,000 times 100 is 220K. Okay.
200K.
Yeah. So in 2000, this was 2013 when I first built 100 apartments.
Guys, when we're done, the TV pros need to use the studio because we're working on stuff.
Yeah, we're almost.
Yeah,
done.
we're almost done, right?
Yeah, so maybe like 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
So in 2013 when I started building the apartments, I built 100 units, 100 apartments, and the land that I bought for about, this was 2013, so I think I bought the land for at least 200,000, and I was charging 500 every month for those 100 apartments, so I was making about 50,000 every year, 50,000 a month. I'm sorry. But now, since 2023, 10 years later, due to inflation, I've had to increase that. So now I charge 2,000 for each apartment, and last year I made about 200,000 every month for those 100 apartments, and I made about almost 2,000 times 12. $2.4 million, like 2.4 million in 1 year. So guys, the next subject we're going to talk about is how to start a small business.
Alrighty, so speaking of small business, how do you start on a small business? How do you go about that?
Well, a lot of people assume that you need cash to start a small business. Yes, you do need some capital, but if you're going to start an online business, that's not necessarily the case. But if you're going to open up an online business, like for example, an LLC, you do need to spend not that much money, maybe a few hundred on to start up. Like for example, if you're going to open EIN, or if you're going to start an LLC, you need an EIN. That's the identification number for the business. You'll need that for taxes and you know, just so people know who you are. And you need a seller's permit, and that can be done online. You have to go to the California Department of Tax and just online and just apply for there. And you just need a business license, and you just have to wait at least maybe 2 to 3 weeks, maybe about 3 weeks to get it approved and then to the mail. And after you start that, you can just start selling online. And for example, if you're doing Amazon FBA, that's also an LLC business. You need to apply all that and then make an account with Amazon and find suppliers, and they ship your products directly to Amazon, and you will be seeing sales on your phone or on your laptop, whatever you decide. And my best recommendation for products is find what's in high demand, but not that's so popular. Find a product that isn't really well known or popular, but yet there's a high demand for it, and people will automatically just want that.
Now, is there a specific age that you can start on this process?
No, I mean, I started when I was 16, and I was an adult, so.
Okay. So you can start pretty young.
Yeah.
Do you need a whole lot of money to get it started?
Well, no, when I started with 3,000,
Okay.
but, you know, I had a job, I was working for a year, all the money that I saved up, and I invested it in this, and it turned out pretty well.
Right, so pretty much anyone can get started in
Yeah.
this.
You need like, is it like a 2%, 1%? Like,
You can do, well, I started as one person, but then you can get, you know, maybe 2 or 3 people. You know, I had my brothers who helped me out, my 2 older brothers, they helped me on this, and, you know, it's going pretty well.
Have you opened up any businesses yourself?
Yes, I have a software company. I also have, I just mentioned, I also do Amazon FBA. I first started out selling products for pets, and then I started off and then with beauty and then electronics, and I'm also starting a dropshipping business.
Awesome. Now, if we're selling those things for pets, how long did it take for that business to kick off and really start getting traction?
It took about 6 months because if you want to be the best seller on any category on Amazon, you have to get the reviews first, which you won't see money right away. But you also have to make sure. What I did was with one little unit, I sent it to Amazon, and I bought it for $20. It was this little case for the kid. It was called Fancy Feast for its cat food, and I sent it to Amazon, and I didn't know how much they were gonna cost me because Amazon also takes a percentage of how much you make for each sale. So let's say if I make $10 for one sale, they'll take about $3. So, but you have to make sure how much they're gonna take. So you just give them one, and then you can calculate how much you need. And after I did that, then I bought 100 units and I sent it there, and I made about 500 profit from those 100, and Amazon took like 200, so I made 300 myself. And after that, I just started going and investing more. I was still working my minimum wage job, and I started saving. I just bought more pallets and more units, and skyrocketed from there.
Sweet. All right. All right, everybody. So that was Jack Podcast. This was episode 2. We talked about the stock market, real estate, and how to start a small business.
My name is Elias Mubarka.
My name is Renee Silva.
And I'm your host, Brian Arrestondo, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you.